What's up, everyone? Today we're going to continue going through our PowerShell advanced function example where we're exporting Azure Logic Apps out to a JSON file. This is part 2. I'll include a link to part 1 down in the video description, as well as a link out to this code example that we're working on. We'll finish it up today by going through some value from pipeline type things and maybe adding some additional verbose output. My name is Jeff. This is Jeff Brown Tech. Let's go ahead and get started. To quickly recap, what do we have done so far? We've created a function called export logic app definition. We have a couple of parameters here. Some of them have some validation for them, a validate script and validate pattern. And then we have an if statement here if we have an actual good logic app, and we have some error catching around it too to make sure it exports out to a file just fine. And basically some other error handling saying if it doesn't exist, we'll output that no logic app with that name exists. So far, this is a pretty good advanced function that we have going on here. We can run it, give the name of a logic app, a file path, and a file name if we want to, or if not, we do have some default values here, and it'll export it out to a JSON file. However, I want to make a few improvements where I can actually just specify logic apps in the pipeline, pipe it over to this function here, and it'll export all of them instead of having to specify one at a time. For example, if I were to say get AZ logic app, then we input the name of a logic app and then export logic app definition. Right now it's going to prompt me for the name because I didn't supply one and it's not recognizing the logic app that we're passing in through the pipeline here. So go ahead and cancel that and clear out the screen. What we're going to look at first with the pipeline is value from pipeline by property name. So in our parameter definition here, if we just start typing this, it'll bring up some IntelliSense here, and we'll add in value from pipeline by property name. Now, what does this mean? What it will do is look at the incoming object through the pipeline, and if that object has a name property, it will match it up with our name parameter. So let's take a look real quick. Let's bring our command back up here. And if I were to just run get AZ logic app on this specific logic app, one of the properties is name, and it has the name of the logic app we want to export. Now, if you have a parameter here and the name of your parameter does not match up with this property name, you can take a look at changing it, or you can add aliases for your parameters and it would still match up that way. In this case, name of my logic app object here is the same name as my parameter, so we have nothing to worry about there. Okay, now that we've added this in here, we actually shouldn't need to do anything else. What we'll do, let me bring in this version of our function again. We'll clear out the screen. And if we were to bring back up our previous command where we tried to export it out here, we can see it did export. But now let's take a look at our file because there is something missing here. If you look at our file name here, it does not include the name of the logic app that we wanted to export. If we go back and look at our function, if we look at our file name parameter definition, I did put a default value in here that is supposed to include the name, and it's the name based off the value we put in as our parameter up here. I'm not sure exactly why this doesn't work when you pass it through the pipeline. I think I did ask ChatGPT and it said just something with the timing and the way it processes things here. So we do need to go fix this. So what we'll do, we'll take away our default value here for our file name parameter. Go ahead and take that out. And let's just go into our function definition here. And we could really set this anywhere, but I only want to set the file name if we have a valid logic app that we have found here. So inside of our if statement, we'll come into here and we'll say if not file name, basically meaning if we did not specify file name in our parameter when we called our function, we'll paste in our default file name that we wanted to put in here, and we'll say file name equals this. So just to recap, we took off our default value for our parameter if we don't specify a value when we call the function. And if we have found a valid logic app, the first thing we're going to check is if file name does not have a value, we are going to set file name to this. That should take care of our issue here. Let's go ahead and save this. I'll load in our updated function here. Let's clear this out. And just to show, I'm going to go clear out our file here as well. And let's go ahead and bring this back up and run our command again. And there we have it. We now have an exported JSON file here, and it did include the name of the logic app that we're exporting. This is also just a good example of you might have an idea of how you want things to run, but as you go through and try to implement some other things, you just have to go back and change the way you did it before, and that's okay. So right now we can take a single logic app and pipe it to our export logic app definition, and it's going to export it. But maybe I want to export a whole bunch of logic apps, maybe all the ones for a particular resource group, or all the ones that are in a particular subscription. I can run just get AZ logic app. My current context is set to a specific subscription. And if I run that, it'll bring back up a whole bunch of logic apps. So maybe I want to run get AZ logic app, pipe that over to my export function here and have it export all of them. Let's give that a try and see if it works as is right now. We'll do that and then say export logic app definition. If we take a look here, we do see a new file, but it is only for the YouTube to social logic app, which also happens to be the last logic app listed if I run get AZ logic app. So it did transfer over in export one, but it didn't export all of them. So let's go through and take a look at how we can fix that. What we first need to do is go back to our name parameter definition, and we did ValueFromPipeline_by_property_name, but we actually have another one called ValueFromPipeline. What ValueFromPipeline is going to allow us to do is accept multiple values coming in through the pipeline. Now, in order to process multiple things coming in from the pipeline, we need to go back down and add something else to our script here, and that is a process block. I do have another video where I talk about begin to process end blocks. I'll include a link to that down in the video description below. Let's go take a look at that if you want to learn more about these process blocks here. So what we'll do is just add a process keyword, do some curly brackets, and then we need to take all of our other code and put it inside of process here. What the process block will do here is automatically cycle through each item coming through the pipeline. We don't have to add a for each statement or do anything like that. Process block will take care of that for us. Now that we've added in our process block, let's go ahead and test our function out here and see what it will do for us. And then if you notice down here, I don't have anything exported right now. So let's bring our command back up and try this again. Now it ran through there, it did take a second. And if you notice again, we only had one file exported. In this case, it's a different logic app name than we saw before. But I want to show you something here real quick. If we go into this one, it's called for sysops to social. But if we go through and take a look at the file in here, you'll notice something right here. It says new YouTube video. So what's happening here is our file name isn't getting updated correctly. It is going through and exporting each logic app, but we're having an issue with our file name. This is actually the logic app that posts YouTube videos out to my social. What the file name here shows is for sysops. That's when I would write a blog article to that website. It would check it and post it out to my social. If you run into an issue like this that you're trying to troubleshoot, we can do a couple of different things here to validate what exactly is going on. What you can actually do here is use another component of advanced functions in our write commands. We used them earlier here in our catch statement for write warning and our else statement for write warning, but there's also write verbose. It's a really good way to just put out additional information of what your function is doing in case you maybe need to troubleshoot or take a look at what it's doing a little bit more. Let's actually put in a couple of write verbose messages. So we'll use write verbose message and just say processing $name. So which logic app are we processing at the time? And then after we get our file name set, let's just do a write verbose. And this one I'll probably take out later, but we'll just say file name is file name. This is just the process of trying to troubleshoot and figure out what your script is doing. Just outputting something to the screen is a good way to do that. Let's bring in our function in here again. Clear out the screen. Let's run our command again, and we'll add verbose to our function call. Okay, so we just saw this output here, and watch, it's processing for sysops to social. Here's our file name. But as it gets to the next one, ATA to social, but you notice our file name isn't changing. Azure updates for sysop, blog archive for sysops. We're just having an issue with our file name. It is actually processing through each logic app, but we need to fix what it's doing with our file name. This is how I figured out to solve this. There could be other ways to do this. On line 42, I'm creating a new variable called process file name. This is going to hold our file name for our current process loop. And I'm just setting it equal to file name. I then need to take this and double check this here and change these here and any other references we have to file name. Okay, that looks good. I think I got all of them. So what's going to happen here is as we go through and process, we're going to set process file name to file name. And then if we haven't specified that name at all, if it's blank, we're going to create our automatic one here. And then file name is process file name. And then we're going to try our export and our catch. But then we need to add a finally block here. Now, finally blocks, I actually didn't go over that when I've talked about try catch blocks in the past. This will always run even if the try is successful or if it fails and goes into one of your catch blocks, your finally block will always run. So I want to make sure this always runs even if our export failed. What we'll do is say process file name equals to null because I need to clear out that file name for the next time we run it. Again, this is just all the fun stuff you go through when you're trying to write something custom like this. You've got to go through every scenario and account for how it can work inside your function. We'll bring our command back up. We're going to leave on verbose just to make sure it's doing what we want it to. Let's run this. And you can see we are getting a lot more files this time. Perfect, that's expected. We're processing this logic app and the file name matches, ADA social, file name matches, etc. So good. So this is great. We can now take multiple logic apps from the pipeline, process it through our function, and export them. And we don't even have to specify the file name. It will generate one for us. Last thing I'm going to do is just add some more write verbose messages. And then also I want to add some output. If I don't add verbose in there, my command will just run. We won't see anything output to the screen, and then it'll just go to the next command prompt line or whatever. We won't actually know if it did anything or not. But first, let's start with some other write verbose messages. I'm actually going to take this one out. That was just more for troubleshooting at the time of what we were doing. Actually, I want to take that file name output and just say in our try message, write verbose, exporting logic app definition to process file name. And then what I want to do is get our file object that we create. So I'm going to do get item. And our path is going to match this here. So this should get our file that we just created. I'm going to create an output custom object here. I'm going to put logic app, and its value is going to be our current logic app and the name. We'll reference our file and full name. And then we are just going to output this to the screen. You don't even have to use write output here. Just take your custom object, put it there, and it'll output it out to your pipeline. All right, looking back over, I think we've got lots of good things here. We can now process lots of things through the pipeline. We have some write verbose messages. We handled the issue with our file names not updating each time it runs through. I think we're looking pretty good here. So let me go ahead and save this. We'll load up our function again. Bring this up here, and let's go ahead and run our command again. I'm not going to do it with verbose first. We'll just run it like this. We can see some files starting to export, and now we have some output here. We'll see the name of the logic app and the file that it saved it to. So perfect, this is great. I think we've done everything that I wanted to do here, but I now have my own tool here that I created to do a task that's not in any native Azure PowerShell commandlets. And we've made it versatile. When we first got started, we just had to run export logic app definition. I had to specify a specific logic app. Didn't always have to do a file path or a file name, but I made it a lot better now by accepting pipeline input, which is what PowerShell is all about, being able to chain multiple commands together through the pipeline to do something really cool. So now I can just run get AZ logic app, pipe it over to export logic app definition, and it'll take all the logic apps and export them out for me. I've used a custom function like this in this exact scenario where I wanted to export logic app definitions to save them out to a storage account. And being able to do pipeline things like this, I can just connect to a subscription, run get AZ logic app, and it just takes care of all of it for me. Generates file names, everything. So that does it for this video. I think the next one will go over different ways you can then take your custom functions like this and load them into your current session. Look at, adding it to your profile if you don't know what your PowerShell profile is, or even creating a small custom module and loading that up as well. That does it for this video. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.